Hello, welcome to Big Anime Talkies. I'm your host, Jason Hahn, and we've got a pretty exciting show to talk about. Some very, big news to talk about, anime manga stuff. Sorry, it's been a couple weeks. Got to shake off these cobwebs, but we got some big news to talk about, and also we're going to talk about Chainsaw Man Chapter 176, Jujutsu Kaisen 268. And One Piece 1125. But first of all, I've got some awesome guests that I want to introduce. They're going to kind of join me in this roundtable discussion just about some news because some of these series they might know a little bit more about than I do. But first of all, I'll go ahead and introduce our very talented and Screen Rant writer, Joshua Fox. How are you today, buddy?
And happy to be here as always.
Absolutely. Good to have you back, man. And another recurring guest that we've had the pleasure of having on a few times, another Screen Rant writer, Merlyn D. Souza. How are you today? All right. Well, she must be working on some stuff. Well, we also have another guest that we've had on a previous episode or two. I'm not sure if that one ended up going live or not. But we have Screen Rant's own editor in chief and possibly one of my bosses, Evan Mullicane. How are you, man?
Hey, I'm doing well. Yeah.
Yeah, he is also the one who wrote the list of the greatest animes of all time. So if you have any issues or disagree with that, he's your guy. Anxious to hear your thoughts on some of this stuff today, man. It's good to have you. But we'll dive right in. I think one of the biggest pieces of news in the last couple of days was obviously a big fan of Dragon Ball here on the podcast. I think a lot of us are. And a lot of people are pretty excited. Some are a little bit mixed on the reception of Dragon Ball Daima. That is the new anime series coming out. And it is apparently one of the most involved the series creator Akira Toriyama has ever been in bringing one of his series or creating an anime. He unfortunately passed, as many of us know, earlier this year. So there's a lot of spotlight on this series as being one of the last things he ever worked on. And the new trailer kind of gave the best ideas yet on what we're going to be expecting. Rumors, and this was from a Dragon Ball insider, so who knows if this is legitimate or not, but the trailer kind of also insinuated that this might be taking place before Dragon Ball Super, maybe even after the Buu saga, but we're going to be exploring the Demon Realm, which is something that they've kind of teased throughout the series, the franchise, consistently, but never really spent a whole lot of time on. So it's kind of an exciting time, and just the fact that they have spent so much time and energy on this anime compared to how they approached Dragon Ball Super's anime, it's very exciting. But what are your all thoughts on some of the things you saw from the trailer? You excited for Daima?
I think the trailer looks really good. Like you said, it's clearly a step up from what they were doing with Dragon Ball Super. I mean, you just look at the animation quality on display throughout the Daima trailer, and it feels like, oh, okay, this could have been a movie, right? This is definitely a top level production. So that's definitely reassuring because Toei can be a really good animation house, but it can also be a little inconsistent when they're being pushed on time. So that trailer definitely gave me a lot of confidence that at the very least this will be a very pretty looking show.
Yes. Yeah, I think the production value is just every trailer that we've seen is a clear step above, especially from the first episodes of Dragon Ball Super,
Right.
Which is just really surprising. It's a franchise that's one of the world's most popular franchises ever, and it seems like Daima is finally the series that they've given the attention that the production deserves.
Yeah, 100%. I think also that I'm very interested to see what happens with the story. I totally agree with what you were saying. It to me, this feels very much so directly after the Buu arc, but before all the stuff with Dragon Ball Super and Battle of Gods. I remember I looked it up. I think Battle of Gods takes place like 4 years after Buu's defeat, so there is like a good chunk of time between between Super starting and Boo's defeat. So I'm very curious to see where they'll take the characters, because it feels like, Super was already kind of taking place in between 2 points, but now now Daima is going to be taking place in between that. So I'm very curious to see what they'll do with the character development, because that's one thing that, and I mostly like Super a lot, but I think that's one thing that Super is kind of hamstrung by, is having that distinct endpoint, right, of the flash forward epilogue in Dragon Ball. At the end of Dragon Ball, the characters are allowed to develop, but they're not allowed to develop too much, because they don't want to outright contradict the end of Z, even though they kind of are. They kind of are. It kind of doesn't make sense if you read that and then you know Super, but they're not going to outright contradict it. So I'm curious how they'll keep it from seeming like everyone's just kind of spinning their wheels. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And then you factor in GT into that, because I think it was either Shueisha or Toei flat out said that that is still all together on the timeline. So, I mean, if this is, with all that being said, it definitely puts Daima in a weird situation, because you can't have them, like, you can't have Goku unlock a new form in Daima, because then why didn't he never use it in Super or GT?
Right.
And that's also kind of another thing with GT, is just like we never see, the god powers or any of that. So that kind of, I don't know. It almost puts more pressure on whatever Toyotaro is going to do with the final manga arc. Like, is it going to really successfully tie everything in and be like, oh, so this is why none of that's in GT, or is he just going to redo GT? My biggest hope is that Daima will possibly introduce some stuff with the Demon Realm that will have a big payoff in the last arc of Dragon Ball Super, if Toyotaro is only going to do one more arc. But that would be pretty great if we actually get that connecting tissue that I think a lot of the arcs that Dragon Ball Super was lacking. A lot of its stories are very self-contained, and I would say it wasn't even until the anime stopped and the original arcs that haven't been adapted in an anime yet do a much better job of like connecting to one another, and this could only happen because that happened. And it's kind of, with Dragon Ball being this huge beloved franchise, it kind of feels like about time that it starts connecting to one another, and it'll help some of those cool moments be even cooler. So up cooler, he's a character anyway. But yeah, I could probably go on and on about a Dragon Ball with a Dragon Ball centered podcast if we'd like, but Daima is officially releasing October 11th, which is the same day that Dragon Ball Sparking Zero is coming out, a game I'm very excited about. It's going to be a great day for Dragon Ball fans. So looking forward to that. But any other thoughts on Dragon Ball Daima before we go into the next piece of news?
I think another thing for me about Daima, because there was that rumor, I think you actually sent it to me, Jason, that was that Toriyama had actually intended for Daima to connect back to Super, or the broader Dragon Ball franchise, in some exciting way that teases something greater.
Ooh.
And I'm press X to doubt on that one. Just that would be cool if it did, but knowing Toriyama's storytelling style, I always got the distinct impression that he was never kind of one for over planning, or having these big overarching, like, oh, this is going to connect to this, and this is going to connect to that. I think that's honestly part of what makes the original Dragon Ball work, weirdly enough. I know some people complain about it, but it does kind of have that spontaneous feel to it, where it's like, oh, okay, that's just kind of how life happens. Sometimes you're just chilling out, and then an android comes in, you gotta deal with that.
I guess I have to go fight this army now.
Right. So I am very, it could very well, that rumor could very well be true, but I am very skeptical that Daima is, is meant to seed for future things. Mind you, I think Toyotaro is much more interested in that sort of storytelling, which is good. It works for him. So I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of retroactively goes back and, looks at Daima and tries to find some inspiration. But that doesn't... Toriyama planning that doesn't necessarily feel like... feel right to me. But, I could very well be wrong.
Yeah, it was not I who sent you that, so this is the first I've heard of this. So that could be exciting, but that could also absolutely be a marketing thing that they're like,
yeah,
oh,
true.
But I totally get what you saying because that Sandland series recently came out, and I really it was the first time that I'd like read the manga and I watched the anime and even reviewed it on Screen Rant, and I did really enjoy the parts that he wrote. And then the anime kind of decided to do a whole nother arc that just didn't really feel like that story. Like it didn't have that character connecting tissue that he had, built into that one story. So yeah, I don't know. It would be nice if it connects to the broader story, but then again, at the same time, my butt's going to be in the seat for a series that is just a self-contained story from Toriyama about Dragon Ball again. So
yeah,
either way, very exciting. So, yeah, we only have about a month to wait for that. I think it's going to be somewhere around 20 episodes, and they're going to be releasing, I believe, one episode a week for a while. So it's going to be fun watching weekly Dragon Ball. I was there with Dragon Ball Super, especially towards that ending. Every week was just an exciting event for fans. And there's a chance we could be getting something reminiscent of that excitement again. So I'm all for it. But moving along before we talk about Dragon Ball for another hour, this is a series that I believe our guests are going to be a little bit more informed on the series than I am, but I have not had the time to check out Dungeon Meshi yet. And Dungeon Meshi Season 2 has entered production. And the tweet that kind of teased this coming out came with the quote, "If you want to kill and eat dragons so badly, I'll give you plenty." And that's about all my knowledge I have on Dungeon Meshi so far. Yeah, I would love to hear what that could possibly mean. And if anybody hasn't seen Dungeon Meshi, how would you pitch that series to them?
I guess what if you cross Dark Souls with Food Wars?
Sold.
Yeah, that's surprisingly accurate.
All right, excellent. Yeah.
It's like Dungeons and Dragons, but if you could eat it. Just and with the most immaculate characterization and world building that you've ever seen, just the level of thought that goes into how this magical every part of this magical ecosystem works is just mind blowing. Like they figure out a way to eat living armor and it makes perfect sense, and you're like, oh, of course. Why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't it work that way? It's very good.
Like you go in expecting a very weird series, but then surprisingly, it's very cozy, very very comforting, and you almost want to eat the weird food in it.
That's I think cozy is the perfect word to describe it. I kind of not necessarily a problem, but there's a lot of like slice of life series, very anime that are described as like cozy and wholesome, and they're not really for me. But this is cozy and wholesome in a much different way, where there's still conflicts, there's still stakes, there's still the characters do have a real emotional core, but there's just such a comforting like aura to it that even when things are tense, I'm still just like it still just feels like a blanket. It's like, ooh, yes, please more.
I think that's why it's so approachable, and I think that's why so many people have tried it, and it's gotten that popular.
That's excellent to hear, because I mean, you had me at Dark Souls first, but with comfort, like a comfort food anime sort of thing, but with stakes and tension, that I'm kind of in the market for something exactly along those lines. Maybe after I finish Kaiju number 8, which is not that, I'll make some time for that. but I'm glad it makes a lot of people really excited. And, I'm wondering, it's based on a manga, and did this first season like end in a really cool, satisfying cliffhanger way, or?
Sort of. Like, it wasn't really like a major cliffhanger unless you count the brief season 2 trailer, but it did end on a pretty conclusive note, a good enough stopping point.
Mhm.
And yes, it is based on a manga. Season 1 covered about the first 7 volumes, and so season 2 will probably cover the last 7 volumes. So,
Oh, okay.
good.
So it's not a super long series.
No.
Awesome.
No, it was a monthly series that ran for maybe 5 years. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure it finished a few months before the anime started.
Mm-hmm.
All
Well,
right.
I think it finished. I know there was the joke that the creator finished the series right before Baldur's Gate 3 came out, and the joke was like, and I don't even know, it might actually just be true because she is big into RPGs, but the creator was like, oh yeah, I needed to finish the series before Baldur's Gate 3 came out, so I could just devote all my time to playing that.
Absolutely. I love it when creators that we love and respect like let their geek kind of shine a little bit. Like before the new Elden Ring DLC came out, the director of Final Fantasy 14, one of the world's biggest MMOs, was saying that they're going to delay their release by a week so everyone could enjoy Elden Ring DLC. And I love it when that stuff comes out. But yeah, if you haven't checked out Dungeon Meshi, it sounds like we have quite a few glowing recommendations to check it out. And knowing how long anime takes these days to come out, we probably got some time before Dungeon Meshi Season 2 comes out. I'd guess at the earliest, maybe late 2025. But I'm sure more updates will be shared once they are available. That's about all I got on Dungeon Meshi. The last bit of news I wanted to get into before we start getting into manga chat is, as anybody who's heard the podcast has heard, or our previous one, Mega Manga Mondays, I'm a huge Naruto fan. So I was really thrilled this week when a official interview came out between. Well, first of all, there's a huge event that took place in France where the author of Naruto and the author of Boruto got together and they did a special screening of the fantastic Boruto movie. Kind of blown away. We've only gotten one Boruto movie, by the way. That's a huge missed opportunity. I could go on for a while on missed opportunities on the Boruto front, but the interview had Kishimoto and Ikimoto, the two people behind Naruto and Boruto, take pretty much a huge Q&A session with an audience full of hardcore fans. Thankfully, it was translated and put out. Screen Rant has done quite a few articles about some of the biggest highlights, but I thought we would talk about a couple of them here because some of them are quite exciting and revealing. First of all, Kishimoto talked about possibly wanting to do another manga series or another Naruto one-shot, which, if you're not familiar, one-shots are kind of like a small self-contained extended chapter of a series. And after the big popularity poll that happened about a year or two ago, the winner of that popularity poll, which was tallied from all around the world, was the fourth Hokage, Minato. So Kishimoto did a whole side story about Minato. I also reviewed that for Screen Rant, and it was phenomenal. Like, just Kishimoto's art is just, on my opinion, a whole nother level above the Boruto manga. And storytelling wise, just so much of it like connects on a like deeper level to the franchise, and just like Kishimoto's writing is filled with so many like huge psychological, metaphorical, subject material type stuff. I'm definitely not giving it justice, but the Minato thing, highly recommend it. And he talked about doing another one, possibly about Itachi, who was also highly ranked on the popularity polls. I think Itachi is a pretty cool character. I think people like him, and I of course will be reading that if that happens. But just a little nugget for Naruto fans, especially of the manga type. There could be more Kishimoto stuff coming. The guy deserves as much time off as he wants, so I'm definitely not going to be rushing or storming the internet demanding that this happen anytime soon. But it is exciting to hear that like Kishimoto isn't burnt out on the whole manga thing. There's other mangakas out there who have successfully put out huge beloved series, and then they're just so burnt out on it that their health either can't do it anymore or they're just not interested in doing it anymore. So it sounded like a really cool event. The other bit I wanted to bring up on the interview too was that finally a lot of Boruto fans out there seem to think that Kishimoto is doing all the story writing and all of that, and then Ikimoto is just doing the drawings. But anybody who like read Naruto or like experienced like the themes and all of that the story was going through and how well everything connects, Boruto's a different experience. And I think it's pretty obvious if you read a couple chapters, even a couple arcs of Boruto, that it just feels different. It looks different. The characters are different. Things just kind of happen just for the excitement instead of like the emotional connection. I don't know. I have my issues with Boruto in general, but it kind of came out. There's a lot of uproar, people saying like, "Oh no, I thought it was this way," but actually it's Ikimoto's, vehicle. He's essentially, doing a lot of the writing while Kishimoto is sitting in the background approving things. And I think the quote is Kishimoto I didn't type down the quote, so I'll get it wrong. But it's somewhere along the lines of Kishimoto has just really been enjoying reading the series instead of having to play a huge role in creating the series. So they do disagree from time to time on, oh, we should kill this character off, and oh no, we need to do this and that. So it makes a lot of sense to me that Ikimoto is the one in charge of the Boruto series and the storyline, because it just feels like that. But we kind of got confirmation there. But were there any things from any of my fellow Naruto or Boruto fans here? Was there anything from the interview that really, really caught your mind that that you were excited to see?
For me, the big thing was definitely him talking about potentially starting a new manga. I believe unrelated to Naruto or Boruto, because I know after Naruto, Kishimoto tried to do, I think, what was it, Samurai 8?
Yeah, I did not hate it.
No, it wasn't bad. Well, I think it kind of to me it kind of epitomized the problem with a lot of modern with a lot of Shonen Jump's practices, not because Samurai 8 was bad, but because I feel like Shonen Jump didn't give it really a chance. I mean, you think back to the greats of Shonen Jump, right? Dragon Ball, I mean, even Naruto, One Piece, all that stuff. Were they like, at their peak in the first chapter? Like, no, of course not. It took them a little while to find their footing and kind of find their voice. And so for them to cancel Samurai 8 so early really was like, I don't know, I just feel like that was really kind of heartbreaking. And so, I'm really excited to see him get back in the game and try something new. I love the Naruto universe. But yeah, I'm really curious to see what he'll what that original project is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I don't know how many chapters Samurai 8 did come out with, but it did put out at least 3 volumes. And unfortunately, I haven't read all of it. I've read, I think, the first 2 volumes. So I'm a little behind on that. But that was another series that I think he wrote but did not draw. But and I could be wrong, I should probably look this up, but I don't think Ikimoto drew Samurai 8. I think it was somebody else. And I liked the art style more than I like Boruto's art style. I think Boruto's art style feels very JoJo, Bizarre Adventure, which isn't a bad thing. It's just not Naruto, in my opinion. But yeah, anything with new Kishimoto would be great. I'd be really interested to see how it would be released. If it would be like a monthly sort of thing, or I don't know how the Black Clover guy has gotten this deal where he only has to put out like 8 chapters a year now, it seems, which is just killer for anybody waiting for the anime to come out, because the anime stopped so then the manga could finish up, and now it's going to take forever for that to happen. So whatever deal that guy made, good for him. He deserves it. Tabata's the creator of Black Clover is pretty talented, but that's a whole other discussion that we could probably have Steven on for some time.
Definitely.
Any other thoughts on Naruto's interview before we jump into Chainsaw Man chat? All right. Well, it sounds like we are ready for some manga discussions. It's been a few weeks, so we have a few events, especially with Jujutsu Kaisen coming to a close. We got a lot of stuff to talk about, but we'll go ahead and start with Chainsaw Man. The latest chapter that released was chapter 176, and just really everything that's going on right now. Like, poor Denji. I think the last time we talked about Chainsaw Man on the podcast, he had just been served. He had just found out that Nayuta, the control devil girl that he's been, taking care of, was killed, which is still hard to say. Like, that is just, it was really messed up. Fujimoto is really good at just surprising you with things that you would not expect the series to go, because it's so messed up. And the panels of her head just coming with all the sushi along the sushi line is just going to live with me for a long time. So understandably, Denji has, in the last couple chapters, just gone full Chainsaw Man mode, just like he did at the end of part 1, which is just a feast for the eyes to behold. I love the design and just how brutal and, for the lack of a better term, metal it looks. Almost every page with Chainsaw Man's full devil form just makes me feel like it's the cover of a heavy metal album. But these last couple chapters finally had War Devil jumping in. Ever since she was introduced, she's been talking about wanting to kill Chainsaw Man and get some of the devils that he's eaten out of him, essentially, so that they can come back into the world and she can become more powerful, because those devils are apparently like the nuclear devil, things that he has eaten that once he's eaten, they're erased from like people's memories, and it's really weird how this series is doing that, especially in these last couple chapters. He would like eat the ear or the mouth devil, which are, I don't know, somebody here might be able to clear it up a little bit better for me, but it was just really crazy. And one of those things is like, don't think about it too much because your brain is just going to break on how history may have worked if nobody had ears or mouths. Like, how does that work now? Like, it's a lot. But the whole concept of War Devil, like wanting to get those devils out of him, has brought the story to this point now where she's willing to like sacrifice her other war, mongering devils, like the gun devil, which is kind of a huge deal that brings up a few other talking points in this, to give herself like new arms, essentially, that might succeed in doing what she wants. Because that would be the most exciting thing to happen in the story. But yeah, just the fact that she's, willing to sacrifice that to I feel like I'm kind of rambling here, but there's just a lot in this chapter that connects to a lot of other things that I thought was really interesting. But the chapter kind of began with the War Devil and Asa in the bath having a heart-to-heart, and it was kind of the most like emotionally compromised that I think we've seen the War Devil get. She just finally admitted that all she really wants to do is become more feared than the Chainsaw Devil. And this chapter was her realizing that she's willing to sacrifice her closest comrades, like the Gun Devil and the Tank Devil, in order to achieve that. So it was quite a bit of good character development for War Devil or Yoru, however you want to address her. And so for me, it's just Chainsaw Man's character writing is on a whole nother level sometimes. And the way Fujimoto's pacing is, it can just happen like in a chapter that you're not expecting it to just suddenly evolve a character on a profound way. Did anybody else enjoy this chapter?
Oh yeah, this chapter was fantastic. Like as cool as it's been to just see Chainsaw Man go on a rampage for the past few weeks, but like giving Yoru this big power up that brings back the Gun Devil of all things, that was amazing, and especially the design of what a new form looks like. I'm just so excited to see how this battle pans out.
Yeah, like the black arms and the guts just like showering around her, and man, just it was definitely, there was a couple panels in this chapter especially just stare at him for a while, just like, man, this is just so cool. But yeah, I mean, especially you bring up the Gun Devil again, and just remember how like Chainsaw Man started, like how brutal and devastating the Gun Devil was. Like, I just think of the whole scene of Denji's buddy and how his like family just got wiped out, and the stats that the series like dropped on us, that the Gun Devil appeared for mere seconds and hundreds of thousands of people were just wiped out. And to know that that is a devil that she was willing to sacrifice to get even stronger devils out of Chainsaw Man, a little scary. It's a little scary. But yeah, I don't think we've seen the Tank Devil like in action. So, but if supposed to be comparable to the Gun Devil, yeah, it's going to be a fight to behold. But I don't know. At this point, we've seen Denji literally cut into little sections, and he still came back to life. So I'm not really sure what death would even look like for Denji. I think we still got to get power back somehow. So it would be really cool if maybe Denji gets sent to hell, and then he has to fight his way out of hell, or something like that. That I would watch that. But yeah, just fantastic chapter. I think a new one's not coming out next week, but very anxious to see what happens next. But yeah, any other thoughts on the Chainsaw?
I have for a very long time, been a Chainsaw Man Part 2 apologist. I know not everybody has been loving Part 2, but these last couple chapters have been really good. And I think it shows how good of a writer Fujimoto is, that we're kind of in this situation, and you really don't know who to root for, because ostensibly, in terms of like public safety and everything, Denji is the bad guy, right? Like he, Chainsaw Man himself is the villain. So, you kind of inherently, want to root for Asa and Yoru, because they're the, they're the only force right now that looks like they can stop Denji. But then also, like, that's not exactly uncomplicated, because Yoru's motivations are far from noble, right? Like, she doesn't care about protecting people or anything. She just wants to, prove she's the biggest on the block. So, it creates this really like tense situation where you just want him to be like, please stop fighting, please.
Yeah. Just have a conversation. It'll all be okay.
Yeah. So I've been really enjoying it. I'm very, very curious to see where this will develop and how this will go. You know, I'm still holding out hope for a happy ending, but it's not looking good right now, buds.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not even sure what a happy ending with this series.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, it was only a few chapters. Kind of learned that like the Chainsaw Man Church, their plan is essentially. Actually, I'm not sure if it was the Chainsaw Man Church or the Devil Hunting Association. Their lines are kind of blurred at this point of the story, in my opinion. But their overall plot seems to be to get Chainsaw Man to the point where he's so strong that he could wipe out like some of the primal devils, which could possibly erase like death from existence, time. Like that's kind of these huger, bigger concepts that are hard to wrap your head around. Like how is Fujimoto going to possibly, what would happen if Denji kills a time devil? Like, does that just mean time doesn't exist anymore? Then what does that mean? I don't know a whole lot about physics, but time and space is kind of a big deal. So this series could go anywhere, and there's very few series that get to that point and still keep you as engaged as Chainsaw Man does. So yeah, I have no idea what an ending like this series could be. But yeah, I don't know. At the end, I almost feel like Asa and Denji are gonna like have to team up and against some big bad or something like that. But yeah, we'll definitely be talking about it as we get. But yeah, any other thoughts on Chainsaw Man? I think we can. Next thing we're going to talk about is some Jujutsu Kaisen. All right, seems like everybody's ready. So Jujutsu Kaisen at this point, chapter 268 just came out, and 269 I think is coming out in about a week or two. But there's only 3 chapters left. This chapter that officially came out finally saw, I can't believe I'm saying it, the conclusion. Sukuna defeated. All the conflicts seem to end in this chapter. Like we got the whole little bit of a time skip, like where everybody's healed and having a good time eating lunch and talking about like, oh boy, wasn't that crazy? And I'm very curious how Gaga is going to wrap this all up in a satisfying way. I personally was pretty satisfied with Sukuna's ending. I mean, it took 30 some chapters to defeat this guy. And that's kind of, a lot of shonen issues get to that point of like, how do you defeat this enemy that we've built up to be as terrifying as possible? And I thought that they did a really good job with it. A couple disappointing bits though is like, we got like Yuji's domain expansion teased, but it didn't really have like an ultimate move sort of situation. Like I kind of looked it up a little bit, and when somebody gets somebody trapped in their domain expansion, they're essentially on their turf and they get a stat boost essentially. So Yuji, got better speed, better his attacks were more powerful, which makes sense on like he was able to get a good dismantle and a final black flash and a domain expansion amplified black flash. Kind of cool. I think that did the job. But not without the help of a lot of sacrifices, and Nobara. Nobara's alive, and it was something that I thought was even funny. I think I might have did a screen rant about this. If not, I forgot to pitch it. But even the anime in season 2 seemed unsure if she was dead or alive. The anime even added like an extra line of like, well, I stopped Nobara's like, wound from getting worse, but she might be dead. She might be alive. We don't know. I'll go take care of her while you go do something else, Yuji. And that was kind of the anime even acknowledged. Yeah, we don't know either. She might come back. We don't know. And I thought her coming back was well done and cool, and it was a fun way to bring her in and have her help in the final battle. Were you guys satisfied with how they handled Nobara overall in the series?
Okay. In my opinion, this is the theory I've seen around, and pretty much believe it. Um, what I believe is the reason Megumi was so vague about Nobara's fate, at the beginning of Shibuya, was because they didn't want Sukuna knowing. Because as we saw, Nobara was pretty much she played a big role, in bringing him down. So I think they didn't want Sukuna overhearing it through Yuji. So maybe they were vague about it on purpose.
That'd make a lot of sense. I hadn't thought of that. But then, then again, Megami, because I think Sukuna can like read people's thoughts if possessing them. So he might have been able to do that while he was, possessing Megami. But I think even that at one point, as Yuji brought up while they were going through his past and stuff, that's like, oh, you didn't know this? I thought you were in my head. He's like, oh, I don't bother reading every memory in a garbage dump or something along those lines. That jerk. But yeah, that is a great theory. I like that idea a lot.
Other than that, I think there was just one gripe I had with the official translation, which was when Nobara makes a big return, she does the OPP thing that Yuji does back in season 1. When everyone thought he was dead, and he just like pops out of a box and he goes, oh, OPP or something like that. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
loved
According
that
to the
gag.
fan subs, that's what she does. She does that gag, but then it sort of got lost in translation. The official.
I definitely didn't get the word joke or the translation issue, but I did really appreciate the whole like Nobara being in a box and like, ta-da, she's alive. Just kind of calling back to the terrible joke Gojo did when everyone thought Yuji was dead, but he's like, no, he's alive, ta-da. It's just one of those fun callbacks that rewards you for enjoying the series for so long. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. But yeah, I mean, Sukuna's whole end I thought was great. Just the whole like Yuji offering, like, you don't have to die. You can get possessed. You can possess me again, and we'll hang out, I guess. Which I was, just a sign of like how great of a person Yuji is, despite all the awful things that he's lived through. But it also really did Sukuna a certain, like, Sukuna has always just been like that unrelenting jerk, and I would use more harsh language, but he deserves it. But he all the way to the end, he said, I'm a curse, so I am not. I would rather disintegrate into nothing than hang out with you. That's essentially what Sukuna said at the end. So it was unrelenting. We didn't get the bad guy getting a change of heart, which I liked, and I'm a Naruto fan. Like I enjoyed that the bad guy stayed the bad guy the whole time. So overall, I was pretty satisfied with it. I was, as I said earlier, a little disappointed with Yuji's domain expansion, but it almost leaves open that he could get even stronger. Like, I think at one point they said that he could, do some sort of like blood manipulation domain, but he hadn't like mastered that well enough yet. So, I mean, power scalars be damned. Yuji he beat Sukuna and he could still be stronger. So have fun discussing that for years and years and years. But yeah, we still have 3 chapters left too. The story, especially the official translation, I finally read. I've been reading fan subs and have realized how terrible that is lately, especially Jujutsu Kaisen. They the official sub definitely left open like Yuta is still alive and needs to be rescued by somebody. Is how the official translation left it. So Yuta being alive would be a surprise for me. Like, I'm also was happy to see Panda and Maki still walking and kicking, and they're all going to meet up with Yuta, who might still be in Gojo's body. I think it'd be wild if Yuta and Gojo both like come back, and we just have this happy ending where everybody's okay. What are all some of your all's theories on Yuta's fate? Do you think we'll get a happy Yuta ending?
I hope so, because I hardcore ship Maki and Yuta, and if Yuta is in Gojo's body, that's gonna make things very awkward.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a huge Maki's probably one of my favorite characters in the whole series, and so I want her. I want a happy ending for her. But that is a ship I can't say I've heard. I fully support that though. Poor Rika. But yeah, any other how would you like Jujutsu Kaisen to end if you were in charge of this story, Merlyn?
Like you said, I personally think it was perfect. It was maybe it was a little fast paced, but then Jujutsu Kaisen has always been very fast paced. Like it doesn't waste time, you know. Um, I hope Yuta's alive. I as much as I love Gojo, I hope he's not alive, because we've been going back and forth too much on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can solidly say he's probably not coming back, especially with Gege like doing that whole scene after, well, actually before the reveal that he'd been a particularly bad case of being halved. He had that whole moment where he's talking to everyone who has died in the series. So yeah, I think it would be kind of lame if they brought him back. Just let it all be. Just get over it. Fans who are holding on to the hope of Gojo coming back. But yeah, it kind of also speaks like My Hero Academia just ended. Jujutsu Kaisen's ending. What are your thoughts on the future of Shonen Jump after this now, Evan?
Oh, it's not looking good. No, it'll be. Shonen Jump will be fine. It's just they have
You have Hunter
Kagura
x Hunter coming
Bachi.
back.
Oh yeah.
But no, I mean, so Shonen Jump for a little while has kind of been pivoting away from the typical Shonen battle stuff that has kind of made them, it's kind of been their bread and butter for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Not totally pivoting away, but definitely not the main focus anymore. I think it will take a while, because right now, in terms of series that are still running, they have a couple of things on Shonen Jump Plus that are kind of that are big and will be around for a while, like Spy Family. A couple of those things are ending, like Kaiju number 8 and Chainsaw Man are very clearly winding down. But I think Dawn to Dawn is also, I'm not sure if that's winding down or not, but that's also, kind of in the running as like one of their bigger titles. So in terms of just like normal weekly Shonen Jump, though, yeah, I mean, it'll be weird to only really have like, oh, Kagurabachi is really the only big kind of traditional Shonen battle series. So yeah, I don't know. It's definitely an unprecedented era. They have a couple of things that are decidedly not in that Shonen battle genre. Like Blue Box is really big, and that's getting an anime. But yeah, it's definitely unprecedented territory.
Yeah, I mean, it almost seems like One Piece is holding a lot on its back. But
yeah,
we're about to start getting into One Piece, but I mean, we still have at least probably 2 or 3 years of One Piece left. Like, I think the last time that Oda was asked how much longer he thinks it's got, he's like, I think I want to end it in about 3 years. And this was in 2021, I think.
Oh,
wow. And where we are in the story, there is no way that this is ending like within the next year. Like, we have so many things to cover. So we'll see if something else pops up before that. I know the creator of Hunter x Hunter, as Merlyn said, we've got some new chapters on the way for that, but who knows how consistent that will be. And then also the My Hero Academia guy, Horikoshi, had teased a while ago that after he was done with My Hero, that he wanted to possibly do some sort of like horror series. So yeah, I know the future could have some exciting stuff in it. Just as it is right now, it's seeming pretty barren. But yeah, there's a few other series definitely worth checking out. But as you said, like the whole Shonen Battle series that have been that bread and butter for Shonen Jump for so long, it definitely feels like a different time, and something is going to have to fill that spot, I think, because I mean it's their bread and butter because that's what people like, and not to say that people are going to not enjoy the other series that are not that, but there's a huge desire for that sort of thing. So we'll see what happens, especially with a lot of these bigger series starting to get like monthly releases and things like that. The whole weekly manga model might be something that might be diminishing.
I just don't think it's sustainable. Just seeing all the the health issues that's caused and all the pain. I mean, even Kishimoto had to delay his honeymoon for like 3 years, because he was just until Naruto ended. So like, I hope more mangaka move to monthly, because I feel like that's a much more sustainable model than just pumping out chapter after chapter weekly. Unfortunately, I do have to get going. I have a lot on my plate. It was great talking to everybody. Hopefully, I'll be around for the next one.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time, Evan. And yeah, check out a lot of Evan's work on the anime side of Screen Rant.
Yes.
But thanks for your time, man.
Of course. Have a good one, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
But yeah, I know we're kind of going a little bit above time. Sorry for keeping you all late again. But yeah, if y'all are up for it, we still have quite a bit of One Piece to chat about. Josh, did you have a chance to read the 1125?
Oh, I did.
Oh, awesome!
It was incredible.
Right. And we're unfortunately, we usually like to just talk about the official subs, but this newest chapter's official subs aren't coming out for another day or two. But by the time you hear this, it's probably out. So we won't try to get into too many wordplay specifics, just in case the fan subs, which are usually pretty good, we're totally off with anything. But yes, One Piece chapter 1125 proved that Egghead isn't quite over yet. A lot of people keep thinking that that last chapter where the Straw Hats are finally heading to Elbath, we're like, oh, Egghead is done. But this chapter proved that we still have a little bit more. And the editors have teased that we still have some huge reveal happening at the very end of Egghead. And I think we might have just gotten it. There's a few huge things in this chapter that I definitely want to talk about. But one thing I wanted to bring up before we get into this next chapter that's officially coming out in a couple days was the conversation between Kizaru and Akainu in chapter 1124. I did a whole screen rant, I think, that just came out about this, on how One Piece is really good about making complex villains, and Barcelona, or Kizaru, however you want to call him, has always just been kind of that lazy, lofty guy. Just he's been unclear justice is what he kind of represents, as he's just the guy that follows orders, but you're not really feeling or what his personal morals are. And we finally saw that all come apart in this chapter recently, when he was reflecting on having to kill Dr. Vegapunk. Apparently one of the only friends that he ever had, possibly even one of his best friends. And him finally like breaking down and yelling at his commander, Fleet Admiral Okiji, or Akainu, however you, or Akainu, sorry. And we even saw Akainu like break a little bit, and he's always just been the tough exterior, absolute justice. If you do something wrong, I'm going to melt you, even though if it is morally okay from your standpoint. And I think it all connects to like in the time skip, the Lava Admiral and the Ice Admiral, Uzan and oh boy, why I'm terrible with names right now. It's but they
Aokiji?
fought Aokiji, thank you.
Yeah.
Because his other name too is the thing that I keep on flipping back and forth on. But anyway, they fought at Punk Hazard for like 10 days straight, and at the end of that fight, he couldn't bring himself to kill Kuzan, even though he had won the fight. And so it is clear that he isn't 100% heartless. And this conversation kind of showed that, you know, that battle may have really affected him more than people acknowledge, because Barcelona, you know, after he was, you know, pressured on like, why didn't you get this job done? Then he burst into tears and says, "It's like, well, if you don't think, you know, check this out, come and see for yourself, or you don't have the, or did you have the, have you ever had to kill your best friend, essentially?" And it forced him to, you know, look at this and be like, "Oh man, okay, I'm sorry." He's like, "Oh, start like you didn't have what it took to kill your best friend, and here you are berating me for not doing a good enough job, even though I had to do it." Like it was not all that was said, but it can be kind of inferred just on how Oda's drawn their expressions. And it's just a reason I love One Piece so much is all these characters are just so layered, and these little character moments can say a lot without saying with saying so little. So I really enjoyed
Do you
that.
think One Piece could ever, you know, redeem Akainu?
Yes, I think it could. I mean, he did, you know, he kind of put a hole in a lot of people's favorite character. But I don't think that he's going to come out and be like working with Luffy and, you know, this and that. But I think that at some point it's going to be impossible to support the world government. And I think that those cracks are starting to show. I don't think it'll be. You know, I don't know. It's a great
Because
question.
we did have a Marine in the like the recent chapter, you know, who questioned Saturn about whether what Vegapunk said was right, and he just gets
Yeah,
pretty much.
he gets pew pewed, which is wild. And another thing, I'm not big on power scaling, but I kind of acknowledge it. Back when somebody else like questioned Saturn on Egghead and their head just exploded. This was a vice admiral, and his head did not explode, but he was still significantly damaged.
Mhm.
But that was another thing. Like Joy Boy's hockey explosion was so powerful that it knocked out vice admirals who are trained to withstand hockey. So we're getting to those levels in this series now where, you know, the most powerful figures are starting to reveal their powers. And just I guess I've been dancing around it a long time, but holy crap, Saturn's whole like melting scene was some of like Oda's most twisted art. Like I loved it. And just it kind of plays into the idea and a theme. I talked Discord about this a little bit on how the theory is that Emu and the five elders are linked, like in a very similar way that Vegapunk and his satellites were linked, obviously with some sort of devil fruit or magic or something like that. So it's not the same as Vegapunk, but it seems like Emu is like funneling either his power or like his soul into these elders and keeping them alive. Like in this chapter, it even 200 years in the past when they're talking about the Iron Giant or the Iron Golem. So I don't know if that's the first time that we've seen like the elders so far into the past. We've known that Emo is probably immortal, but the elders and how long that they've been like in their roles hasn't been as clear, in my opinion.
Mhm. I mean, when the Iron Giant like first began moving, the five elders did seem to recognize it, but and it didn't seem like they, recognized it from a description. It seemed like they saw it and they like recollected it from memory, and that's when I think that was like one of the first signs that they were immortal, and also the fact that Bonnie could not age Saturn, and yeah, I think this is just concrete, confirmation. And maybe their immortality comes from Emu. Maybe their devil fruit powers, so-called devil fruit powers, also do.
Yeah, that's a good theory too. I mean, at this point, a devil fruit could do about anything. Like if Oda decided, is like, oh, this devil fruit like just erases reality. Like, oh, okay, well, I guess that works with the system that you've introduced. So, yeah, it's very, very one of the biggest mysteries of the series is like what is Emu's like powers. And I'm thinking that we keep getting more and more tips and hints about it, but Saturn absolutely deserved what came to him. It's really rare that we get to see like a One Piece character die, let alone like in that sort of fashion where he just melted away into a skeleton. Like, okay, that wasn't a Pell carrying a giant nuclear bomb explosion death. That was like that guy's not coming back. But the whole like it was Saturn's whole like messing with Kuma like and the whole
Yeah,
thing with
he had it
Ginny,
coming.
like he had
He
it coming and
deserved it.
everything was absolutely
And
like
it was
his fault
satisfying.
too. It was one of the most satisfying like villain endings that we've had in One Piece, but even he was just like, how was I supposed to know like the hockey knot was going to come into play? And it's just like it's not even that. Like he essentially like messed with Vegapunk. He messed with Ginny. Like all these things that came to fruition during the Egghead arc were all things that he had like done that have all just exploded and into his face in this. So he absolutely deserved it, and it was mostly his fault. So it'll be interesting to see how the other elders react to this, especially with Garland showing up and saying that he had been promoted. And they're like, well, by who? So it's like, did they not know that Emu promoted him? Is there somebody else between the five elders and Emu that is like in charge of that? Like, I don't know. There's a lot of mysteries, but just how scary Garland is at this point in the series too. Like the way he was introduced is he's one of the few people with the authority to kill celestial dragons, like legally on their like messed up laws. That's wild. But then the fact that he comes in and says like, we expect really turbulent times and a lot of revolts about to happen. So I've been brought in to handle that. Like, what sort of confidence, what sort of like crazy confidence is there in this man to be able to handle what is ahead of us? Oda has made this man terrifying in a way that we really need somebody to be scary, because the admirals have lost a lot of their credibility, who were once the strongest characters in the entire series. Emu has also been shaken. Like he has had a lot fall apart in these last couple arcs. But we saw him shaken with the Joy Boy thing. We've saw plans fall apart with Vivi being able to escape. Like a lot of the characters that we've been brought up to really fear at this point of the story have lost that aspect. Like we're no longer like, oh, this is the big mysterious thing that is so scary. Like we've had those shaken. And so Garland has appeared to take that spot, and it's really exciting.
I honestly think he's really cool. He's way cooler than Saturn.
Yeah.
He's finally adding some how do I say this? He's adding some drip to the five elders. They were just a bunch of sad old men before this. Now they
Yes.
have a cool old man.
Yeah.
I
Cool
think his
old
love
man
is
with
designed. the beard and the hair, and it's shaped like a moon. It's just perfect.
Yeah, and even the panel where he walks in and approaches the five elders, Oda just drew him in like a black suit, and it just
Mhm.
like completely like over encompasses the entire page with his like demeanor. And there's also the whole like clue from the One Piece Red movie that he could be related to Shanks. So how that's all going to play out is a whole nother level of excitement, especially with what Shanks's connection is to the elders. Which I think the last time we talked about One Piece on the podcast, we brought up the whole theory of a Shanks twin possibly being
Oh
in play.
yeah.
Um, so a lot of mysteries that will hopefully be unveiled soon. But yeah, the only other note that I wanted to bring up before, if you guys had some notes about the chapter you wanted to bring up, was, and this is another thing I wrote about, Vegapunk has kind of achieved a sense of immortality. And in this chapter, it really, really nailed that home that he's been able to like digitize his consciousness. And they were able to separate Punk Records, which is Vegapunk's brain, into the sky and get it away from the Marines, which I was another ending I did not think was going to a happy ending for this arc that I thought was going to happen. So that all the Vegapunks are like still conversing in the digital space, kind of. But then they were all able to kind of Frankenstein themselves into like a Vegapunk robot Frankenstein that's just floating in the sky now. I loved that. I don't think it like demeans their the deaths of their bodies. Like I kind of assumed that everything was going to be okay if it's all like locked in this giant floating brain sort of thing. Very curious on how Lilith is going to like play into this, if she's like totally separated by it. I don't know. In the fan sub, they even said like that York is still able to connect to Punk Records though. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if
Lilith should be able to,
right.
if York can, yeah. It sounds like she should be able to.
Yeah, so it's that's another mystery too, is like how much of a role is Vegapunk going to have to play in the rest of this story. So especially it seems like the Celestial Dragons are going to be taking care of York and all that still. So all of the Vegapunks seem to still have a role to play in the story, especially Lilith, who's traveling with the Straw Hats now. So very exciting. What were some of the things on the chapter that y'all?
Let me see. I really like the symbolism of them choosing to throw away York's body parts. It's kind of like Vegapunk finally, choosing to throw away his greed. And
That's kind of deep.
yeah,
I didn't think about that.
I guess his greed was pretty much what caused the betrayal. I mean, because the satellites are pretty much based on his different parts of his own personality, and maybe when he visited Marijua, maybe a small part of him envied the celestial dragons, which is why York chose to betray Vegapunk.
Oh,
That's at
absolutely.
least what I think. And yeah, so I like that they choose to throw away York's past. That means maybe if York is destroyed in the future, there's no way to bring her back.
Yeah, but then it kind of like brings into question, does that mean that satellites are like, what happens to Vegapunk's greed? Like, because that was him almost in a way physically removing those aspects from his central body. So excuse me, would that just mean that like all of his satellites are going to have a little bit more greed in them now? Like, I might be thinking too far into it, but it again plays into the whole like we'll see what Vegapunk's role in the story is going to be from now on. But yeah, or Vegapunk is just going to disappear, or the Punk Records is just going to disappear from the story. Maybe we'll get a cover story about it. Who knows? But I
I
personally
think
really
by
liked
the
the
end,
Frankenstein design. Oh, sorry.
I think by the end, Punk Records is going to become like the version of the internet in One Piece because
Yeah.
I think either Atlas or like Shaka says something about waiting for all of humanity to access Punk Records someday at the end of 1125.
And I think that they even brought up that they're going to head to, I could be saying this wrong, but I think it was Weathera, the place that Nami ended up going during the time skip,
Mhm.
which is another society too, that might have a big role to play by the time the story ends because of their abilities to like control the weather and create artificial clouds and things that'll be very important if the world is going to sink. But I would be very surprised if the whole world sinks. That would be kind of an odd ending for One Piece. But yeah, speaking of ending for One Piece, that's about all out on One Piece today. I think we'll go ahead and wrap up the podcast. Thank you so much. Please like, comment, subscribe, however you're enjoying this podcast. Would love to hear from you. What were your thoughts on some of the series that have any Jujutsu Kaisen fans out there? I would love to hear your thoughts on the ending, possibly how you wish it would have gone differently, and what you think might be in these last 3 chapters. How would you like to see the series end? Chainsaw Man, One Piece fans also would love to hear from you too. But yeah, that'll wrap up this episode of Big Anime Talkies. We'll go ahead and move into some recommendations now. I, Jason Hahn, am I write for Screen Rant. I also do some comedic YouTube stuff on the gaming side with a channel called Hansi and Friends. But if you just Google Jason Hahn on Google, you'll find a couple of my things. But yeah, this week I've been pretty busy writing for Screen Rant. I recently put out one that I want more people to check out because I put some work into it. I'm a huge fan of the Berserk manga, as a lot of people should be. Definitely not for the faint of heart. But we haven't exactly gotten a fantastic anime adaptation of that series. I personally thought the CG movies were good. That's actually how I got into it. But there's a lot that has not been adapted into an anime yet. So I did a whole list of the 10 most jaw-dropping events that Berserk fans have not seen adapted into an anime yet. Some fantastic art showcasing that, and I hope more people will check it out. But Josh, how about you, man? Any recommendations?
Actually do have a recommendation for an upcoming series. In the next issue of Shonen Jump, I believe, a new manga called Ichi the Witch is starting. I actually wrote about this a little while ago, but the team behind it is a pretty big deal. It's written by the author Welcome to Demon School, Iruma Kun, and it's illustrated by the artist of Act Age, which that everyone remembers was one of the biggest manga in Jump back in 2020. People pretty much everyone knew it was going to be the next big thing, and only for it to just suddenly get canceled because of some really terrible stuff that the author did. We're not going to get into that here, but yeah. So for the past 4 years, everyone's been waiting for the artist of Act Age to get another shot at something, and now she's doing that, and she's teaming up with a super big author like Irma Coons of all people. So that's pretty big. It's pretty much just what the best thing anyone could have possibly asked for. So Ichi the Witch, it looks like it's gonna be a really exciting manga to look out for.
Awesome, and that's making its debut this Sunday. So that would be September 8th. Excellent. We'll keep your eye on that. I personally, it's only like a couple dollars a month. Subscribe to the Shonen Jump app. Got to support those series you love, y'all, or else they can't create the series that you like. So, yeah, definitely shonenjump.com. Should be able to have that Sunday morning. I'll definitely check it out. That's some glowing recommendation praise. But yeah, how about anything that you've written this past week that you are really proud of? You want people to check out?
like we were talking about Dragon Ball Daima at the beginning of the podcast, and I did actually write up our article about the latest trailer, but that was pretty fun. It's pretty fun to do, but especially since it recently came out so late at night, I don't always get the opportunity to cover stuff that and comes out so sporadically like that. But I was fun to write. I went into detail about some of the bigger things in the trailer, like Demon Realm and how Goku can use Super Saiyan, which is also a really big deal since that kind of seemed like that the series is going to be more grounded with its combat. We wouldn't get all the super big transformations and energy attacks that have become a staple of the franchise for the past few decades. It was fun to write. So if people want to read that, they should read that.
Absolutely, yeah. A much more effective breakdown of the Dragon Ball Daima by Josh can be found on Screen Rant. Definitely check that out. Yeah, I personally am pretty excited to see more Super Saiyan also. Like throughout Dragon Ball Super, obviously Super Saiyan kind of fell by the wayside, and it'll be cool to see that become prominent again, especially with the amount of detail that the artists are giving it. It looks phenomenal, especially in the trailer. But how about you, Merlyn? Any recommendations this week and of anime, manga, or stuff that you've written?
Oh, I haven't really gotten around to watching any new anime lately, but I did check out this really old series that I haven't watched in a while. It's called Love, Chunibyo and Other Delusions. Yeah, I decided to rewatch this after I think over a decade, and it was amazing. It was such a nostalgia trip, and it was still so good. And I think it's a I no it's I can't remember who the author is, but yeah, it's a really good anime. And speaking of articles I've written, we did speak a lot about the ending of the Jujutsu Kaisen today. I did do a nice little analysis quite recently, mostly on the you are me, the line that Yuji says to Sukuna, and yeah, that's one I'd suggest checking out that I'm kind of proud of.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what a profound line too, and it just really rang back his whole dynamic with Mahito also. Oh man, I'm just now realizing we didn't. I was hoping that one theory I had with Jujutsu Kaisen, small. I won't take long here. I was hoping we'd get to see Mahito again. Like I was thinking, Kenjaku was going to like lose control and everything that he had eaten was going to like come out, and I was hoping we would see Mahito again. But yeah, we'll have a lot more Jujutsu Kaisen stuff to talk about once that series officially ends. We'll probably do a whole podcast just talking about the series and the ending when that officially drops, like we do with My Hero Academia. Which if you have not seen that yet, go back and check out our past episode where we talked about My Hero Academia's ending and the series as a whole. That was another fun conversation. But also look forward to new episodes in the future. I look forward to them. And again, thank you guys for your time, your commentary, and also thank you, listeners, for listening this far. But this is big. This has been Big Anime Talkies, and I look forward to the next one.